Wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. Albert Einstein. That's a pretty wise observation. Pretty wise guy. In fact, there have been several studies that have been done over time to measure who's the smartest man to ever lived. And in most of those surveys, Albert Einstein comes at near the top or at the top of the list. But why? Surely, of the billions of people who have lived on this planet, there have been tens, hundreds, or even thousands that were much smarter than Einstein. So why do we recognize him as one of, if not the smartest men to ever live? I'd like to suggest it's not because of all the things that he learned. It's what he did with what he learned. It's how he applied the knowledge and skills that he had to make the world a better place, to advance science, and to improve society. Today, we're going to discuss lifelong learning and why it might not be enough to simply know a lot of interesting things. Let's start by defining lifelong learning. Lifelong learning has been defined as the provision or use of both formal and informal learning opportunities throughout people's lives to foster the continuous development and improvement of the knowledge and skills needed for employment and personal fulfillment. In other words, it's taking both formal and informal learning to develop knowledge and skills so you can get a job and be happy. Now, let's break this down. Formal learning is typically structured, instructor-led. It happens in a classroom, and the result is some tangible sign of accomplishment like a grade or a certificate or a degree or a job. Informal is not structured. It's student directed. It can happen anywhere. And the result of informal learning is usually just satisfying your own passions and interests. Informal learning used to occur typically through books, going to the library, or talking with a caring adult who knows more than you do. However, because we live in this digital age, there are so many more opportunities for informal learning than ever before. We have YouTube, we have podcasts, we have websites and blogs. We can even have a Zoom meeting with an expert anywhere in the world. And so access to information is available like no other time in human history. Now, as an educational researcher, I'm not completely satisfied with this definition of lifelong learning. I know that learning happens when we make connections in our brain, and you can make connections in so many different ways. You can associate things, you can draw on your own previous experience. You make connections when you see things, when you hear things, when you work with things. And what this definition doesn't have is learn by doing. We know that when we actually mess around with things and try it out, we make more connections and thereby we learn better. So if we truly want to be lifelong learners, we want to practice learning by doing. John Dewey, the father of pragmatism, used learning by doing in his schools way back in the 1960s. He would have his students go out to this laboratory school where they would actually get real world experience working on the farm or doing different projects. They made meaningful connections, and it led to not just short-term learning, but long-term learning and impact. Now, over time, schools have not changed very much, despite what we know about how people learn. We don't have as many experiential learning opportunities in our classrooms. We don't do enough problem-based learning and experiments, but we know that those are best practices. We know that when we learn by doing, we learn better. I feel this definition of lifelong learning also falls short because of the reasons for which we learn. Now, traditionally, we went to schools so we could get a high-paying job and live a comfortable life. And if we enjoyed our job, that was icing on the cake. Today, a lot of kids feel different. A lot of the rising generation of millennials, of Generation Z, feel that it's not enough just to get a job anymore, but they want to have meaning and fulfillment in their work. They want to make an impact, to have influence. And so as they look to be lifelong learners, they're looking at how they can take that knowledge and skills, not just to benefit their own lives, but how they might share that with others. So we should also address this idea of learning by teaching. I believe that a true lifelong learner learns in both formal and informal ways, that they learn by doing, and that they share that learning by teaching. So what does this look like in action? I'd like to use a case study using Eli. Eli was born roughly 16 years ago. Now, around that same time, another significant event in the world happened. Disney bought this little company called Pixar. And shortly after that acquisition, a movie was released named Cars. Well, Eli, as a baby, was exposed to the world of cars. In fact, he loved cars so much that his first word was ka-chow. Actually, I don't know if that was his first word, probably not. But he would go around as a little toddler. He'd go around the house, ka-chow, ka-chow. And he would pretend that he was a car. He really thought that he was Lightning McQueen, and he'd drive around, and he just loved it. Well, we love this fascination with cars, so we encouraged it. We gave him toy cars. We got books about cars. We showed him movies about cars. So from an early age, Eli was learning about cars. He learned everything he could with the resources he had available to him. Now, as he got older, he continued to develop this interest in cars. So it became more self-directed, and he would seek out cars. We'd drive down the road and he would point cars out to us. And he was always excited when he'd see a new car, especially if it was a bright color. And as he got older, he developed a real like for one particular style of car, the Ford Mustang. And anytime we'd see one out in public, he would point it out to us and he'd say, hey, look, there's a Mustang. And this got really tedious for us as his parents, because sometimes we'd go on road trips and he would point out all the Ford Mustangs and he would count them. And sometimes it would get into the hundreds. And so he loved Ford Mustangs and he loved cars in general. And he did everything he could to learn about cars. Now, of course, we thought that was a phase and he would outgrow it. He did not outgrow it. He's turning 16 soon and he's preparing to drive, and he loves cars more than ever. In fact, he loves cars so much that for the last several years, he's been working really, really hard, going door to door around our neighborhood and looking for any opportunities he could so that he could work and so he could save up some money so he could buy his own car. Now, in that process, he's also come across some caring adults who saw his interest in cars and have taught him more about Ford Mustangs, and especially about classic Mustangs. And he's been able to go to their garages and work with them on different projects and help to restore some cars and learn about how cars work from the inside out. He's engaged in formal learning this year at high school as he took an automotive class and learned about car maintenance and some basic fixing upping and stuff like that. So he's learned a lot about cars as he's continued to develop this passion and interest in cars. He ultimately did purchase his first car. And it wasn't just any ordinary car. Of course, it was a Ford Mustang, and it wasn't any ordinary Ford Mustang. It was a 1967 Mustang Coupe, his dream car, and he paid for it with his own money. And it's so incredible that he was able to do that. But it didn't stop with just being interested in cars. Of course, he went to that next level and he started learning by doing. He started working on the car. Of course, the car was not perfect when he bought it. When you have that limited budget, you're not going to get a perfect classic car. But he started working on it. He started cleaning it. He learned how to fix the rust spots and to grind them off and to weld them back into place. He started purchasing all the parts he needed. He started working with other adults that helped him understand how the pieces went together so that the guts of the inside of the car eventually would be something that would run and drive him around town. And so he has made all that progress learning about cars by working on his very own car. And to round this out, as a lifelong learner, Eli didn't stop at just learning about cars. He wanted to help others to learn about cars. And so he has filmed his progress, his journey of creating or restoring this Ford Mustang. And he is posting videos to TikTok and to YouTube, and he's created a channel around restoring classic Mustangs. And so he's passing that knowledge on to others. So while he develops his expertise in cars, he's also sharing that with others. Eli, I'm proud of you. I love that you took everything you knew about cars and you didn't just keep it to yourself, but that you shared it with others, not just on YouTube, not just with these different videos you've created, but that you talk to people and the elderly neighbors that we have come over to talk to you about cars, and they're so excited. And you've made friends based on these cars, and you've been part of a community. I love that learning by teaching has opened up doors to you to meet new people, to do new things, and to try new things. That as you've become a lifelong learner, it has affected you, but it's also impacted the world around you. And it's made you a person of significance, of impact and influence. That's exactly what being a lifelong learner should be. And because of your passion in cars and your willingness to do and to teach, it has made a difference in the life of other people. All right, so what can you do to be a lifelong learner in this digital world that we live in? It starts with being curious. Seek out as much information as you can on whatever interests you. And you can do that through YouTube. You can do that through podcasts. You can watch TED Talks like this. There are so many ways that you can learn about the world around you right now. You can talk to experts in your local community, but you can also reach out to experts all over the world. Technology makes it possible to speak with anyone who's interested in the same topic that you are. So be curious. The second part is to be creative. Start building things, start messing around and creating different things around your area of expertise. That might be creating videos or audio. It might be creating articles and writing your ideas down and journaling. But whatever it is, start being creative, because as you build things, you'll develop more expertise around that passion that you have. Finally, be helpful. Learn by teaching. It's not enough just to learn by doing, but reach out to those around you, share that expertise with others. And you'll find that as you do so, doors will open to you. You'll have opportunities, not just to monetize, but to truly help people, to make a difference in the world, to be a person of influence and impact. And as you do so, you will truly be a lifelong learner. Thank you.